The giant glass room was super crowded. Cameras flashed everywhere, and all these important grown-ups in fancy suits were just following the big CEO lady around. I was just 7 years old, standing perfectly still, just staring at her. The lady Scarlet just stepped off the stage. She leaned down to sign a drawing. That is when my voice cut through all the loud talking, loud and super clear. "My dad has a ring like yours." Her hand completely froze. That silver band with the hidden blue stone. It was not something you could buy anywhere. 8 years ago, someone made only 2 of them ever. The man who wore the other one disappeared when her whole world fell apart. But now, because of what I said, that big hidden secret was finally coming out. You and I are going to see how one little sentence changed my family forever. Stick around to hear what happened next. This big company scholarship event and science fair was supposed to look nice, but adults controlled everything. Blue and silver flags hung between these huge shiny glass pillars. Kids like me from normal neighborhoods got to show off our projects. Little models and hand-drawn paper plans. I got to be one of the top winners because I turned in this tiny gear machine I built with my dad over 3 whole weekends. We spent hours leaning over his messy workbench in the back shop while the radio played loud and everything smelled like strong machine oil. My dad showed up wearing his only nice jacket and a clean shirt. He was 35, skinny, and always moved slowly and carefully, just like he did when fixing tiny things at work. He looked pretty funny standing under those giant sparkly lights. He just wanted to get my paper award, shake hands, and leave before the fancy snacks. He did not care about all these fancy charity events. He cared even less about the rich family name on every wall. While he was busy writing his name on a form, I sneaked away. I saw the big table where all our winning projects sat under the bright lights. I just walked right over there with no fear at all, because nobody ever told me I wasn't allowed to be there. All the adults just moved around me. The CEO lady Scarlet had just walked down from her speech. Some boring talk about giving money to smart little kids. She talked like someone who practiced looking brave in front of really important people. She stopped at a table to write her name on a drawing for this boy. She leaned over, totally focused like it was her job. When she reached her hand out, her ring flashed in the light. I stopped right there. I stood 3 feet away and stared right at it. Kids notice tiny details that you busy adults usually ignore. It was a plain silver ring, super simple, not flashy or trying to get anyone to look at it. But I had seen the exact same ring every single day. Right on my dad's hand, rubbed smooth and shiny from working in his dirty shop for all those years. So I just blurted it out, not thinking about secrets. Because I was only 7 years old, and nobody told me I had to hide it. "My dad has a ring like yours," I told the frozen lady. Grown-ups usually have a fake smile ready when kids speak. You and I know that look. The CEO lady tried hers on me. But I wasn't done talking yet. I just tilted my head at her. I stared at the metal band like a tricky puzzle, then I added something. "On the inside, there's probably a tiny blue stone, really small, kind of hidden." Her fake adult smile totally vanished. A weird look crossed her face. The other grown-ups wouldn't understand, but she looked completely trapped in stone. It was like a giant adult secret she had hidden for years just accidentally slipped out because of me. Nobody else could ever guess that. That hidden blue sapphire was completely invisible. You had to take it off and hold it up to the light. Daddy said it was placed there on purpose, a secret just for 2 people. He told me the most special things don't need to be shown off. Scarlet quietly asked what my name was. Then she asked for Daddy's name. A helper brought over a paper form. It said my guardian, Christopher Reed. For the second time that minute, the fancy lady turned into a statue. She was still staring blankly when my dad walked right up to the display area. He was looking everywhere for me. He had that scary, tight look parents get when they lose you in a big crowd. Then he spotted me right by Scarlet. Daddy looked at me, then at the woman standing there. The 2 of them stared at each other for maybe 2 whole seconds. But 2 seconds was totally enough. He marched across the floor and scooped me up in one quick swoop. Daddy thanked the CEO lady, but his voice sounded super cold and completely empty. He walked us away before she could even speak. She didn't even try to call out. "Stick with me here." I peeked back and she was standing frozen in that glass room. People clapped and glasses clinked, but she couldn't hear a thing. Soon her helper Evelyn appeared at her side. The lady could already read the panicked question on Scarlet's face. "Get me everything on Christopher Reed," Scarlet whispered. Her voice was super quiet and it sounded really shaky, like she might cry. Later that night, the top floor of her big corporate headquarters overlooked the whole city. Scarlet sat alone at her giant desk with her jacket off and a folder open. Her big important business meeting had finished an hour ago. She had sat through the whole thing, without hearing a word. She walked to a hidden safe right behind a painting. Under a pile of boring corporate papers and a sealed letter from her dead dad, she found a tiny black velvet box. She hadn't opened it in forever, but the little hinge was still perfectly smooth. Right there, tucked away safely inside the soft velvet fold, was a pencil drawing of two special rings on an old piece of paper. One corner got smudged where someone carelessly left a coffee cup during the really early hours of the morning, a super long time ago. Next to the drawing was a picture of a messy workbench covered in shiny metal. The photo showed two adults leaning over a paper, totally ignoring the camera. Scarlet stared at that old photograph for a really long time. The report Evelyn brought was super thin, we both know why. My daddy Christopher ran a little fix-it and building shop right on the edge of the noisy factory town. 18 people worked there, building big machine parts for regular factories. We didn't have much money. We lived right upstairs. Daddy was single. He just took care of me, 7-year-old Chloe. He never ever got into trouble. He didn't know rich business people or folks who just make friends to get ahead. The only special thing about him was that every single person he helped thought he was wonderful. The lady Scarlet stopped reading. She saw the word single and read it all again. 8 years ago, grown-ups told her a really different story. They told her daddy stole money, sold a secret, quit school, and ran away with another lady. She believed their fake proof right away, because the hurt was just too big to think about. It hurt so bad looking closer just felt like asking for even more awful pain. 40 minutes away across town, Daddy was tucking me into bed. I told him about the lady I met. I said she was pretty but very icy. I said her eyes looked sad, like when grown-ups remember secret things they refuse to talk about. I asked him why he froze up like a statue the second he saw her. Daddy said it was nothing. He told me to stop talking about strangers. He scolded me for sharing our family secrets with people I didn't even know. I said, but she looked so sad when she heard about the ring. After I finally fell asleep, Daddy went downstairs to the workshop. The big ceiling lights were dark. He sat by one small light, twisting that same ring on his finger. He always did that when old hidden feelings started bothering him again. He wore it for so long the metal bent to fit his finger perfectly. He always pretended he wasn't waiting for anything to happen. He promised himself over and over super bravely that a daddy keeps what is his and never has to explain things to anybody. But he never ever took that shiny ring off. The next morning, Scarlet looked at her papers again. She finally asked the one big question she was stuck on all night. If he was so bad to me like they said, why does he still wear that ring? 8 years ago, my daddy and Scarlet weren't the grown-ups they are today. Scarlet was 24. She was Edward Whitmore's daughter, but not the boss yet. She was enjoying the tiny bit of playtime her strict daddy allowed, before she had to work for his company forever. She went to school to learn about business and making things. She told her school friends her last name was Hart, and she spent all her free time at the community builder shop on Decker Street. It was an old warehouse where regular kids went after work to learn how to build stuff. They learned welding, fixing, and lots of other cool tricks from smart teachers. Daddy was 26 on a special smart scholarship, learning how to design big machines. He worked night shifts in the school lab, mostly all by himself, doing super quiet, focused work that nobody notices but turns out absolutely perfect. He didn't have rich parents, and he didn't care about playing games with people who did. They met at the Decker Street shop, put together in the same little fixing group. My dad gave the lady a tool once without even asking when he saw her fighting a stuck pipe, and the lady really noticed how he did it. He wasn't trying to look cool, he just helped her. He just fixed the broken thing quietly. The pretty lady came back the next night, and the next. Grown-ups call it dating, but they mostly just did chores. They fixed a big spinning machine together for 6 whole weeks. They yelled about heavy weights late at night while drinking yucky coffee, but they always figured out a much better way to fix it together. During a super freezing winter, the important lady finally told my dad her real name. My dad didn't talk differently to her after he knew. She knew he really liked her then. The rings were his idea. My dad made them himself over 3 really late nights. In the big workshop, while she sat on a chair watching. Shiny metal, super thin and really plain looking. But on the hidden inside of both, where nobody else could ever see, he put a shiny blue stone the exact color of the ocean. The prettiest secret part was hidden, so only the person wearing it knew it was there. The outside is what everybody else sees, my dad said. The inside is the truth, but the lady's dad was mean. He always knew about my dad. And he let them play until it bothered his business. When my dad started asking questions about the rich men stealing his favorite workshop building, he yelled loud enough that news people noticed the secret deal, so the mean dad got mad. A bad man named Richard helped. In 1 week, their bad trick was ready. Somebody told a big lie that my dad stole secret drawings and sold them to bad guys. My dad's school money was taken away. They rushed the papers so nobody could check the truth. They sneaked a fake letter to the lady, pretending my dad wrote it. It was super mean, saying he made a smart choice and that she would never ever hear from him again. The lady read it sitting in her old little bedroom. She thought my dad just wanted to run away easily. My dad, that same exact night, got a text from her family's phone showing a picture of the lady at a fancy party, standing next to a rich man named Vincent. The little message said, "I picked a different way. Please don't come looking for me." He stood crying in the rain for 40 whole minutes before he believed it. Grown-ups are silly. They both thought their favorite person in the whole world ran away. But the lady had a huge rich company to make her feel better. And my dad had absolutely nothing. He lost his school money, his friends, and his big dreams all at once. He went back to working hard, built our shop from zero, and became really super good at fixing things that are totally broken. But those rings stayed on their fingers. If you asked why, neither of those silly adults could ever tell you the real reason. 3 weeks after that big school meeting, a big science building owned by Ms. Scarlet's company got way too hot when a machine broke inside. Their workers wanted to throw the whole broken thing away. That costs lots of money and takes forever. But the boss there remembered my dad fixing things last spring. He sneaked a paper in to ask my dad to check it out. Ms. Scarlet said yes in 20 minutes. She kept the reason a big secret. My dad brought his one toolbox, checked the machine for 45 minutes, and found the real sneaky problem. Some other helper put a turning part in totally wrong. Just a tiny mistake that grew into a huge mess. Dad said he knew exactly how to fix it. He could fix it permanently tonight, for way less than 15% of a new one. Miss Scarlet walked down from the high balcony. She called him Mr. Reed, and Dad called her Mrs. Whitmore. They looked at the machine, acting very serious and leaving a big gap between them, just like the spaces Dad leaves in his engines. The other workers had no clue why the air felt so weird around Dad and her. They just knew it felt strange. Then the big hallway door opened, and I walked right in holding hands with Evelyn. She picked me up from school because Dad had to work late. "Bah, are you done yet?" I yelled out. Before anyone could shush me, I asked, "Mrs. Scarlet, you are still wearing it." The workers stared at each other. Miss Scarlet stared at me. Dad watched the ceiling. After that quiet moment, Dad showed me the pressure dial, the bouncy needle, and exactly how to read the numbers right. He was super careful and nice. He asked me fun questions instead of talking like a teacher. He was not just showing off for the big grown-ups. I had just asked, and my dad simply answered. Like he answers everything I ask, totally focused on me and never being fake. When it was time to pay, the money people told Dad to charge the rich lady extra. Dad just said no, super calm. He just asked for his normal money and nothing else. Miss Scarlet watched Dad walk me out the side door, standing all by herself in the giant empty hallway. Just her, the buzzing of the fixed machine, and figuring out a big secret. That my dad was not the bad guy other people said he was at all. I am not some sneaky planning kid. I am just a kid who notices little things. After that day, I talked about Miss Scarlet a bunch, but not to be sneaky, but because Dad's face changed when I said her name, and I wanted to talk about it. I told Dad Miss Scarlet looked like someone who totally forgot how to stop working. I told him she seemed really lonely. The weird kind of lonely when lots of people are standing around you, but nobody really knows what is going on inside your head. Her big foundation sent us kids an invite to another learning workshop. Dad was planning to just say no. My sad face made Dad completely change his big grown-up mind in under 10 seconds. Our building workshop was in a big room with super long tables covered in cool robot parts. Scarlet was there too, but she wasn't standing at the very front today. She was walking around our tables, watching. Sometimes she squatted down just to see things exactly my size. She looked so much nicer than when she gives big speeches, way quieter and less scary. I pulled her over to my desk immediately. I put Scarlet right beside me. I handed her a hot glue gun and gave her directions. But Scarlet put the sticky glue on wrong. Dad leaned close to fix the piece without touching her, just pointing to the right spot. For just a second, the three of us huddled around my little robot like we were a real normal family. Like we built cool stuff together all the time. Like it was just a regular Tuesday for three people who were actually supposed to be together. Dad just watched Scarlet work. She was careful. She listened, even when I gave bad directions. Scarlet followed them anyway, then asked me a smart question so I could find my own mistake. Grown-ups never usually do that, but Scarlet did it as easily as taking a simple breath. Dad looked away fast. Later, I heard Scarlet finally ask Evelyn that scary question. Evelyn brought the secret answer that evening. My mother was actually Dad's younger sister, Amelia. A car crash, both my parents died. The will made Dad my guardian, and he officially adopted me before I turned one. Scarlet thought Dad abandoned her 8 years ago for someone else, but that silly adult lie just crumbled into tiny pieces the second she heard the real truth. When we finished building, Scarlet whispered, "Does your dad ever talk about the ring?" I thought about it. No, I told her, but when he misses someone, he turns it, like this. I twisted my own finger to show her how he spins it. That tiny secret told her more than boring adult paperwork ever could. I heard Evelyn say a mean man named Richard Cole popped up in some emails. He was making a big presentation for the company merger, and he typed a specific name. He put Dad's shop redesign on a bad list for the bosses to look at. I saw Richard walk down the hall, his face when he noticed my dad inside. It barely even twitched. Just a teeny bit, but Evelyn. She is super good at watching sneaky grown-ups, and she definitely noticed it. Scarlet told everyone to check the secret records. Evelyn was super careful looking. She dug backwards through old computer servers and boring adult logs, and old messages that had been completely asleep for many years. The mean paper that took away Dad's scholarship had an electronic stamp with the time proving it was signed 40 minutes before the emails even started. Such a huge grown-up decision got pushed through 2 whole boss groups in under 6 hours. Both papers shared the exact same sneaky boss's name. A boss who mysteriously got a new job move approved. And his money came from a secret bank account connecting right back to bad Richard Cole. They found old computer letters that were almost totally gone. You know how grown-ups hide things? Someone dug them from a dusty, forgotten computer machine. The oldest letter had big grown-up words about hiding family secrets and bad risks. The CEO lady drove to find Mrs. Abigail herself. Mrs. Abigail was 63 now. When she opened her door, she looked sad but ready, like she had been waiting for a long time out forever. Miss Scarlet put the ring matching my daddy's on the kitchen table. The old lady started crying softly, like she did something really bad once. She told the truth. That mean goodbye letter she gave Miss Scarlet was actually made up by Mr. Cole. The real letter my daddy wrote was super long and scared, because he loved her so much. He just wanted to explain, but bad adults tore his letter up before she ever saw it. The bad men made Mrs. Abigail pick. Do the bad thing or lose her job and her sick boy's medicine. She picked the bad thing because moms have to protect their kids no matter what. That same week, Daddy's old school teacher who helped him build stuff came to visit. He walked right into Daddy's messy workshop all by himself. The teacher knew back then that those people were telling lies about my daddy. But he was a big scaredy cat and never told the bosses the real truth. He hid a secret paper folder through 3 whole office moves. He put it on Daddy's table without even saying hello. Daddy read it and stayed super quiet. Let's see what you and I think. Daddy finally held real proof that those bad people lied. It wasn't just a sad tummy ache feeling that things were totally unfair to him anymore. Real papers with names. Meanwhile, that mean Mr. Cole finally noticed he was in big trouble. He set up a secret talk. He met Miss Scarlet and talked in his fake, nice, grown-up voice about keeping things looking pretty before their big company joined together. He said digging up old dirt would just make a messy mud puddle for everyone. He smiled a fake smile while staring out the window. Miss Scarlet just listened and stayed quiet. Later, she told her friend Evelyn to hurry up. Suddenly, a giant emergency happened at the really big science building. The giant freezer that keeps all the important science stuff safe got way too hot. A younger worker found out it was broken right around my bedtime. You and I would fix it, but those silly grown-ups just yelled at each other. 2 whole hours ticked by. Nobody fixed a thing, and the freezer kept getting hotter until all the science work would melt. Evelyn called my daddy for help before she even told Miss Scarlet about it. Daddy rushed over super late with 2 friends and his heavy toolbox. He used his nice manners but told everyone exactly what he needed to look at. Daddy found the broken part. Some cooling wire was put in wrong before, and he found it in 30 minutes. He gave them a smart Band-Aid fix that could work. They could do it tonight, and later fix it perfectly without buying a whole new machine. Miss Scarlet walked in while Daddy was fixing it. Dad was just doing his job, careful, very quiet work. Scarlet was really just watching how hard my dad was focusing. How he never looked away, fixing every single problem step by step. How he answered the helpers nicely without making them feel dumb. I guess for 8 whole years she only knew very loud, showy adults. My dad was different. Since the repairs went past midnight, they brought me to Scarlet's big office. I had my favorite blanket and my sketchbook to stay busy. By the time Dad finally finished working, I had fallen fast asleep on the sofa. Scarlet just sat right beside me, keeping the office lights very low. She wanted to do her CEO work but kept staring at my open sketchbook on the table. I drew 3 big hands in my crayon right next to each other. Every single hand had a little blue mark on one finger. My dad came to get me just before 2 in the morning. He stood right in the dark doorway and just froze when he saw us together. Me sleeping soundly. And the lady he spent 8 years trying to forget, sitting quietly beside me with my open sketchbook. He walked over without saying a word. He carefully scooped me up without waking me and held me close. I rested on his shoulder just like I always do. He has carried me like that 1,000 times. He stared at Scarlet right over the top of my head. She stared right back. They did not make a single sound. It always felt freezing cold between them. The ice did not melt, but I think they both felt a tiny crack in it. This mean man named Richard Cole did something bad first. Grown-ups like him hate waiting. Those mean articles appeared within a week. Nobody signed their names, but they had secrets that made people believe them. They said the CEO let her feelings mess up her big business choices. They talked about a poor builder who used his cute kid to trick his way close to her power. A picture of Scarlet and me at the workshop was chopped up and they made our happy moment look like a really sneaky trick. Her bosses had a panicked phone call. Their big business deal was close. They wanted Scarlet focused and perfectly normal. They wanted her completely away from my dad and me. Dad found out when I came home from school wearing a face he recognized. It was my face when I heard adults saying mean words I did not really understand. He didn't ask me to say it again. He whispered very quietly that we would just take some space from the Whitmore events for right now. He said it was messy adult stuff and I should not even worry about it. I stared at him for a super long time. Did I start this by talking about the ring? He said no, I knew he meant it. Later that evening, he went down into his quiet workshop. For the very first time in 8 whole years, he took his ring off and left it on the bench. He just sat there looking at his empty finger, probably thinking about what it meant to hold on to something so long. I tiptoed downstairs at 10 o'clock, barefoot on the cold concrete. I saw the CEO's ring matched my dad's perfectly. I looked up at him. I picked the ring up. Using both my small hands, I pressed it right back into his big palm. If it hurts, you can leave it, I told him, but if it's true, don't let the wrong people win. He closed his big hand around it. Later, my dad just sat alone in his dark workshop. Scarlet and her friend Evelyn covered a table with messy papers, making a timeline puzzle. They worked backwards, starting right at the brand new TV news leak. Then the older papers, the very first complaint, and his school money ending. The hidden emails and the 2 piles of fake letters. Abigail's voice tape and Jonathan's folder. The money trail went from the lawyer fund to a fake company, ending at Richard Cole's bill. By 4 in the morning, the grown-ups finally found the real truth. Scarlet didn't send anybody else to go find my dad. She drove her own car across town that Thursday night, parked on our street, and walked right up to my dad's bright workshop door. My dad was putting his heavy tools into boxes when she showed up. He had a plane ticket. He really wanted us to move away. She told him, the night everything ended, I didn't choose someone else. My dad looked back at her, and he wasn't wearing his angry, protective face like he usually did. He just looked so sad and tired, and that exhaustion melted all his grown-up walls away. My dad pulled out the secret papers Jonathan had given him. Scarlet put down her phone with Abigail's tape and the hidden emails they found. They spread all those pieces across the workbench, just like when my dad takes a broken toy totally apart to see exactly why it stopped working. It took them less than 1 hour to see the big, ugly picture. Bad people gave both of them fake clues made for just one mean reason: to make my dad and Scarlet think the other one had already left. The mean message sent to my dad used her exact words and rhythm. The fake letter sent to her copied my dad's super neat, exact habits perfectly. His habit of using sharp, blunt words when he was hurt and fighting back. They were both fed the exact same story, just from different sides of one giant adult lie. My dad told her about standing outside that big hotel in the rain, watching her through the wet glass, thinking she sat at that fancy table because she already chose the rich, easy life the grown-ups offered. He just stood right there, until his heavy sadness turned into something small enough to carry, and then he walked away. Scarlet told my dad about the night she got that awful letter, sitting in her room while her own dad played a mean game of chess with her whole future. She waited for my dad to come and say it wasn't true. When morning came, she realized that just sitting and waiting wouldn't help her survive the heartbreak. So Scarlet stopped waiting for him and started living the only boring life her family offered. They both did exactly what the mean trick wanted. They finally cried together. Not loud, messy tears that other people are supposed to hear. Just a really, really heavy quiet. The sad quiet grown-ups get when they finally see the stolen years and know they cannot pretend everything is fine anymore. It wasn't like a fairy tale. They were finally telling the truth, something grown-ups hadn't done for a super long time. Scarlet told my dad about a big grown-up meeting. She said a mean man named Richard wanted to tell everyone she was acting crazy. He wanted to make everyone stop listening to her as the big boss. She didn't want my dad there just because they used to be close. She wanted him to just stand there and tell the truth about what the mean people did and how much it hurt him. My dad looked at the ring on the bench between them. He grabbed it and said, "Tell me when." The big meeting was up in a giant room on the 32nd floor. A heavy room built to look forever important. Richard started talking to the grown-ups using his soft but bossy voice like a boy who always hides behind the teacher and thinks that makes him the boss of the whole classroom. He talked about being a leader and following rules and why bringing your feelings to work ruins everything. He sounded super calm. He had done this exact trick before. Scarlet let him finish. Then she stood and turned on the big screen. She didn't sound angry or sad. I guess grown-ups learned that yelling doesn't make people listen better than talking quiet. She showed everybody a bunch of old papers with times and dates matching up perfectly. Like a mean letter that was sent before the thing it was mad about even happened. And how they took away my dad's school money in 6 hours using the same name twice. A secret money trail. Between a secret bank account and a fake business with just one single bill. That bill was exactly the same amount of money they paid right before ruining Dad's school. Old emails and a video of Abigail talking for 2 minutes and 40 seconds, completely willingly. And Jonathan promising the real papers were inside his folder. Everyone got totally quiet. Then they brought my dad inside. He stood up at the front, but he didn't look like he was desperate to tell his side. He just looked like he knew the truth was finally loud enough all by itself. Dad explained what happened to him back when he was 26. Losing his school money, and everyone thinking he was a bad guy. Losing the job he worked so hard for, and the 8 tough years after that. He used short words, he told the absolute truth, he didn't even yell at anyone. Because Dad stayed so quiet and polite, it made all of Richard's sneaky tricks look way worse. Richard suddenly tried to change the whole subject. He pointed at Scarlet's dad and said everything was his fault. Scarlet nodded and said her dad did start the mess. But she said Richard kept it going for 8 long years. He used it like a leash to boss her around, and when she finally started breaking free, he tried to hurt my dad again, a man who already lost everything keeping her safe. She didn't ask the other grown-ups to care about anyone's feelings today. She just asked the money watchers to check all the real papers. She set a time limit. Richard walked out before anyone could even vote. Nobody even tried to stop him. Scarlet told all the bosses that my dad never used my love to get close to her money or power. She said my dad was the only grown-up in the whole 8-year mess who hadn't ever done the wrong thing just to make his life easier. She just said it, no fancy grown-up words. And since it was the truth, nobody in the room argued. Months went by. The business deal finished. The lawyers found bad secrets about Richard, and he couldn't hide them anymore. Our workshop on Decker Street got a giant gift of money from Scarlet's foundation. Scarlet changed the sign to say Margaret Whitmore Innovation House, named after her mommy. Her mom used to say that making things with your hands was the truest kind of praying. They tried to give my dad a fancy boss job, but he said no. He signed a helper contract for all the neighborhood projects, and he kept his shop. His own name stayed painted on the door, just like it always was. I went back to being a normal kid, school, the workshop, my sketchbook. Scarlet started coming upstairs to our apartment sometimes when it got dark. She brought dinner in paper boxes and sat at our table while my dad explained how machines worked, and I sat there making funny jokes about it. Things weren't perfectly fixed right away. We didn't turn into a perfect family overnight. You can't squish all those lost years into one night of truth, even if the truth was super late. But they stopped fighting each other. They stopped waiting for the other person to do something mean again. They started sharing the exact same rooms like normal people, like they remembered how to be friends without being so scared. One Saturday in the fall, the new Margaret Whitmore Innovation House finally opened up for everyone. After the boring speech part, I ran way ahead to the big garden outside. The older kids had set up all their cool robot toys and moving models. Scarlet stopped walking, my dad stopped too. It was a warm day, the street was quiet, and they could hear me laughing from the garden. I was just so happy because I finally felt like I was exactly where I belonged. Scarlet looked down at the ring on my dad's hand. "What do you still wear it for?" she asked. "Now, I mean." He just looked at her first, that slow, quiet way he looks at everything. "Not for the past anymore," he said. "Because it finally got to tell the truth." She smiled. It wasn't that fake TV smile she used for cameras and big rooms full of bossy business people. It was a real accidental smile, like she forgot her face could even do that. She didn't ask him to stay forever. She didn't demand any giant promises. She said, "Tomorrow evening have dinner with me." No press, no contracts, no history coming in uninvited. My dad looked toward the garden, where I was busy bossing around a 12-year-old about how the little metal gears worked. Daddy looked back at Miss Scarlet. He said yes. Grown-up promises cannot bring back the years they spent hurting. But when I accidentally spilled the truth at the perfect time, it can still save all the tomorrows they have left.